Right now, somewhere on Earth, a crow is staring at its own reflection. A dolphin is calling itself by a name no human can pronounce. An elephant is standing beside the bones of a dead relative, touching them with a silence that looks strangely familiar. And yet, we still don't know the answer to one unsettling question. Do animals know they exist? Not whether they can see, hear, hunt, or survive. Not whether they can feel pain or fear. But whether somewhere behind their eyes there is a conscious self looking out at the world and realizing, I am here. Because if the answer is yes, then reality is far stranger than we imagined. And if the answer is no, then an even more disturbing question emerges. What exactly makes us different? For centuries, humans believed consciousness belonged exclusively to us. We built religions around it, philosophies around it, entire civilizations around the assumption that self-awareness was the line separating mankind from every other creature on Earth. But then, science began asking a dangerous question. What if that line never existed at all? And this is where everything starts to become deeply unsettling. To understand why this question matters, you first have to understand how strange self-awareness really is. Most of us move through life without noticing it. You wake up, you think, you remember yesterday, you imagine tomorrow. It feels normal. But the ability to recognize yourself as an individual consciousness may be one of the rarest phenomena in the universe. Your brain is constantly constructing a story about who you are, where you've been, what others think of you, what might happen next. Even now, as you listen to this, a silent narrator inside your mind is stitching together your experience into something that feels like a continuous self. But here's what's strange. Neuroscientists still can't fully explain where that self comes from. They can identify networks of neurons, electrical signals, patterns of activity. Yet nowhere inside the brain have scientists found a single location where the you actually exists. The self appears to be less like an object and more like a process, a story continuously told by the brain. And once researchers realized this, they began wondering whether other animals might be telling themselves stories too. Not with words, not with language, but with awareness. Then came a simple experiment. A mirror. At first, it seemed almost childish. Place an animal in front of its reflection and watch what happens. Most creatures react as if they're seeing another animal. They become curious, aggressive, territorial. But a few species did something nobody expected. Something that challenged humanity's belief that self-awareness belonged only to us. And when scientists witnessed it, the implications were impossible to ignore. The test became known as the mirror test. The idea was deceptively simple. Researchers would place a small mark on an animal's body, somewhere it couldn't normally see. Then they would give the animal access to a mirror. If the animal treated the reflection as another creature, the mark would be ignored. But if it recognized the reflection as itself, something extraordinary might happen. It would use the mirror to investigate its own body. For years, many scientists expected failure. After all, self-recognition seemed like a uniquely human ability. Then a young chimpanzee stood in front of a mirror. At first, it behaved exactly as expected. It made faces. It displayed aggression. It searched for the stranger trapped behind the glass. But eventually, something changed. The chimpanzee paused. It looked, not at the reflection, at itself. It began touching parts of its body while watching the mirror. It examined its face. It explored movements with a curiosity that felt eerily familiar, as though a realization had occurred. As though, for the first time, it understood that the creature in the reflection was not another being. It was me. And then something even stranger happened. Chimpanzees were not alone. Over time, researchers observed similar behavior in dolphins, elephants, orangutans. Even certain birds, including magpies, animals whose brains evolved along an entirely different path from our own. Think about that for a moment. A magpie and a human are separated by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Yet somehow, both may possess the ability to recognize themselves. The terrifying part is that this suggests self-awareness might not be a rare accident. It may be a pattern that nature discovers again and again whenever intelligence becomes complex enough. But that raised an even deeper question. Does recognizing your reflection actually mean you know you exist? Or is true self-awareness something far more mysterious than a mirror could ever reveal? Because knowing what you look like is not the same as knowing who you are. A mirror can reveal a face. It cannot reveal a mind. And this is where the question becomes far darker. Imagine a wolf moving silently through a forest at night. It tracks scents carried by the wind. It remembers hidden paths. It recognizes members of its pack. It adapts to changing dangers. Its decisions are not random. They emerge from memory, experience, and expectation. But is there an inner observer experiencing that life? Or is the wolf simply acting out an incredibly sophisticated biological program? The truth is that nobody knows. And perhaps that's because we can't even answer that question about each other. You have never experienced another person's consciousness. You assume it exists because they behave the way you do. They speak, they laugh, they suffer, but their inner world remains forever inaccessible. Philosophers call this the problem of other minds. Every conscious being is trapped behind the walls of its own experience. You cannot enter another mind. You can only infer that it exists. And animals force us to confront this mystery in its purest form. A dog waits by a door long after its owner has died. An elephant returns to the place where a family member passed away. A whale carries her dead calf through the ocean for days, sometimes weeks. These behaviors feel emotional, almost human, yet we hesitate to interpret them that way, because admitting animals possess rich inner lives would force us to reconsider our place in existence. But here's what scientists discovered. Many animals don't merely react to the present moment. They appear capable of remembering the past and anticipating the future. Some birds hide food and later return to retrieve it. Certain primates prepare tools for problems they haven't encountered yet. Dolphins can recognize individual identities after decades of separation. Their brains preserve memories across years, perhaps even lifetimes. And this is where everything changes. The ability to imagine a future version of yourself may be one of the foundations of self-awareness. Because the moment a creature can think about tomorrow, it is no longer existing only in the present. It is carrying an idea of itself through time. And that idea may be much closer to consciousness than we once believed. But there is one experience that may reveal more about consciousness than intelligence ever could: suffering. Because intelligence can be measured, consciousness cannot. A machine can solve equations. A computer can defeat grandmasters. But neither tells us what it feels like to be alive. Pain does. When an animal is injured, something profound happens. Its body reacts. Its brain responds. But beneath those biological processes lies a deeper mystery. Is there someone experiencing that pain? Or is suffering merely a collection of neural signals moving through flesh? For centuries, many people believed animals were little more than living machines. Complex, yes, but unconscious. Creatures that reacted without truly feeling. Then science began looking inside the brain. And what researchers found was unsettling. Many of the neural systems associated with emotion in humans exist in other mammals as well. The structures involved in fear, attachment, reward, stress, grief. They are not uniquely human inventions. They are ancient biological inheritances. Your brain still remembers. Deep within your nervous system are mechanisms that evolved long before humans ever existed. long before language, long before civilization. The emotional architecture inside you is, in many ways, shared with countless other creatures. A frightened deer, a grieving elephant, a playful dolphin. The differences may be smaller than we once imagined. But here's what's strange. If animals can feel fear, joy, attachment, and loss, then consciousness may not have appeared suddenly in humans. It may exist on a spectrum, a gradual unfolding rather than a sharp dividing line. Not conscious or unconscious, but degrees of awareness stretching across life itself. And if that's true, then the question changes completely. We stop asking whether animals are conscious, and begin asking how conscious they are. The answer may be impossible to measure, because consciousness is invisible. You cannot hold it. You cannot observe it directly. You can only witness its shadows, its behaviors, its traces, its echoes. And some of those echoes are becoming impossible to ignore. So, do animals know they exist? The honest answer is that nobody knows. Not completely. Not yet. And perhaps that uncertainty is the most fascinating part of all, because every attempt to answer the question eventually leads us back to ourselves. Back to the strange fact that you are a conscious being sitting inside a universe that can observe itself. A universe that somehow produced eyes capable of seeing, brains capable of remembering, minds capable of wondering why they exist in the first place. But here's what's strange. When you look into the eyes of a dog, a crow, a dolphin, or an elephant, you are looking into a mystery that science still cannot solve. There may be a rich inner world behind those eyes, a private reality, a silent experience that no human will ever enter. Or perhaps there isn't. Perhaps consciousness flickers differently throughout life, appearing in forms we cannot recognize because they do not resemble our own. And this is where everything changes. For centuries, humanity asked whether animals were like us. But maybe that was the wrong question. Maybe the real question is why we assumed consciousness had to look human at all. The terrifying part is that we still don't know what consciousness is. We know what it does. We know where it appears. But we do not know why existence feels like something from the inside. We do not know why matter became aware, why neurons became thoughts, why the universe became capable of asking questions about itself. And until we solve that mystery, the minds of animals will remain one of the greatest unanswered questions in reality. Tonight, somewhere in the darkness, a crow will remember a face. A whale will call to another across an ocean. An elephant will stand quietly beside a memory. And somewhere, perhaps, another consciousness is looking out at the world, wondering, feeling, existing, not as a human, but as something else, something we may never fully understand. And maybe that's the most humbling possibility of all, that we are not alone in consciousness, only alone in our certainty